You, of course, are listening to the MHA podcast. Why in the world would you play Isaiah McKenzie over your third-round pick, T. Higgins? Why? I like any quarterback that can make Will Fuller look good.
I love it. I think he's a top 20 receiver.
I mean, he is the Jamar Chase whisperer.
Oh, hell yes. Oh, my God.
You know, everybody loves Lamar Jackson.
Hated it.
I trust Derek Carr.
Come on. For real?
I know why you did. It's because you're crazy.
It's still the week and the games aren't even over yet. It's great. It's fantastic.
Fantastic.
It's fantastic.
Patrick Mahomes. Looks so good. Kyle Pitts was bad. Stank.
It's not my shebang. Justin Jefferson.
So good.
We could call him Russell Wilson if you want.
Ooh. Well done, sir. That is good stuff. All of those guys have more fantasy points than Tom Brady. I'm laughing, but I'm crying at the same time. It's terrible. What a night we had for our live MHA draft on Sunday night. Now we're here to look back and give you our favorite picks, our least favorite picks, our favorite teams, and much more. Eric Lansing here with Mikey Renault and Todd Diamond. It's Tuesday night, fellas, just days away from the start of the 2023 season. How excited are we?
It's football. Let's go. Football.
Mikey, you excited as Todd is?
I think it would be hard for me to be as excited as Todd is. I mean, he sounds like he's about to jump out of his chair.
Well, he's got to be excited about something. I mean, his Yankees aren't going anywhere, so on with the Broncos and his fantasy team.
Well, you know, like the saying goes, the Denver Broncos. Hopefully we don't have to say that this year.
I feel like I'm going to be saying that a lot this year, but that's just me being a negative Nancy. That's just me. So before we get into the draft itself, I wanted to ask you guys, which two teams are going to go to the Super Bowl and who's going to win? Mikey, who are your two teams?
Okay. So in the NFC, I'm going to go with the Dallas Cowboys.
Oh, all right.
Take Dak Prescott to finally take that last leap.
Well,
not only get him to
Dak. Oh boy. But go ahead.
an NFC championship, but get him to the Super Bowl. And in the AFC, I'm going to go with the Buffalo Bills.
So Bills versus Cowboys.
Yeah,
Super Bowl we've seen before.
Yeah,
Many
a little
moons ago.
early 90s
Yeah.
rematch. Think that
I'm not mad about that.
Josh Allen finally gets over that hump too.
So you're saying the Buffalo Bills are going to be the 2023-24 Super Bowl champions?
Yep, I'm going with Buffalo.
All right, Todd, who are your picks?
All right, so I will go from the NFC. I will go with the 49ers. I think, having McCaffrey, full season, hopefully, injuries, because that's what, kind of hampered them in the NFC Championship game. So I think the 49ers get over that hump. And then from the AFC, I'm going to go, I was kind of back and forth with this one, but I think it's going to be the Chiefs, and we're going to have a rematch of Super Bowl 50, was it 56 or 57?
Well, this year's 58, right?
54.
54. Okay. So 54, yes. So we're going to have a rematch of Super Bowl 54, and the 49ers get the win over Patrick Mahomes.
So Todd liking Mahomes over Brock Purdy in the San Francisco 49ers. Do you think Brock Purdy can take him to the promised land, huh?
I think so. They've got the defense to do it, and I think having McCaffrey, I think that really just puts them over the top. It's kind of just reminds me a little bit of, and maybe McCaffrey might be a little bit better, but Roger Craig. Roger Craig was kind of that first versatile type running back that we saw. So, just saying, you kind of kind of you add that into the equation, it helps a little bit. But
So,
we live in a different NFL. Go ahead, Mikey.
well, I was just gonna say it doesn't have anything to do with the fact that you drafted McCaffrey and Brock Purdy.
Ooh.
No, I just no because I think at the end of the day, I think they're just no. It's just at the end of the day, they think they're. I think for the 49ers are just that talented. They're no, it's no. I'm not basing it off of that. No, I just think they were right there. I mean, if it was again, we can't play the what ifs. I say that every time on the podcast with players they could do this or that. But if Purdy didn't get hurt, they'd be in the Super Bowl. Let's be realistic. I think McCaffrey didn't have to be the emergency quarterback. We'd be talking about something else. So I think 49ers get to the Super Bowl and they get that and McCaffrey gets his championship and and so forth. So there you go.
Wait a second. I mean, like it's foregone conclusion that they would have been in the Super Bowl if Brock Purdy was there. They lost 31-7. What are we talking about?
Yeah, because he got hurt, and McCaffrey had to be quarterback, running back, wide receiver, and everything in between. Yes, of course you're going to lose 31-7. You're not going to score any points because guess what? The defense, no matter how good your defense is, the Eagles' defense was good, but all you have to do is like, oh well, we all know who's going to get the ball and going to throw it, and McCaffrey's like, I got to be the quarterback too. Yeah,
they were losing when he got hurt.
But at least if Purdy didn't get hurt, he could have they could have made a comeback. So just saying.
You made it sound like a foregone conclusion, which
the way the 49ers were playing, come on, Mikey. Come on. The way Purdy was on there, come on.
In Philadelphia losing, and it's just foregone conclusion. Okay. All right.
So Mikey has Bills over Cowboys. Todd has Niners. No, you have Chiefs over Niners, right?
No, I have Niners over Chiefs.
Okay, so you have the Niners. Wow, winning over the Chiefs. Huh? Brock Purdy. I thought about the Niners, and the only reason why I thought about them is they have one of the easier schedules. Now, obviously, that can change based on how teams play this season, but based on the schedule going in, they have one of the easiest schedules. But so I thought about them. But I ended up going from the AFC, Buffalo, figuring it out just like Todd said. They kind of had an off year last year. The defense took a step back. The offense took a step back. So everybody's going to kind of – you're not going to totally ignore Buffalo. I mean, they have Josh Allen and a great defense. But I think people kind of swayed away after Daboll left. And I think they're going to get right back in it. And I'm going to pick the Eagles to go back and actually have the Eagles win this year. Golly, I mean, you just look at the offensive talent. You look at the defensive talent. There's a lot going on there. So I feel I have them and Hurts picking up the win over the Bills in the Super Bowl. So exciting to see. We'll actually get to see the Chiefs on Thursday. Well, for those who aren't working, I may or may not be working. We'll see what happens with this jury duty on Thursday. But yeah, so the Chiefs and Detroit starting things off. All right, let's get into the MHA draft. I love this. Actually, you know what? I think we have to do some news first, gentlemen.
I don't understand what the news is. It's just like, hey, here's a bunch of you can't fix that happened that was horrible.
And some good news and some not good news. Actually, there's probably not a lot of good news on this one. We talked about Lion Rip's first round pick with Cooper Kupp, seeing a specialist about his hamstring. That's all we've gotten in terms of the news. Obviously, he re-aggravated his hamstring last week before the draft took place. And so he went to go see a specialist. I don't know if that means he's getting a second opinion on something and maybe he's going to miss a few weeks. We haven't heard anything about him missing anything, but not good. Hamstrings are easily re-aggravated. And so Cooper Kupp, we'll see what his status is going to be coming up here soon. How about more first-round pick news? Eaton W's first-round pick, Travis Kelce, hyperextending his knee today, putting his start this weekend in question. I'm sure you guys have seen the story. At least his ACL is intact. Yikes. What kind of sentence is that?
Intact.
I mean, that means like, well, at least he's not out for the year.
Yeah, he doesn't need surgery. That's
okay. It almost sounds like his they're saying like his body's like Play-Doh. Like it's not totally destroyed, but it's still there. Like, come on.
Well, I mean, not great news if you're Kevin. Eaton W's, who picked him in the first round. I mean, it could be they haven't said anything. His start is in question, so we'll have to wait and see. But I think if I saw that correctly, I mean, no, we gave Kevin a backup tight end, so at least he has a backup tight end. How about more tight end news? Speaking of hot tamales, I don't know if you saw this, Mikey, but George Kittle dealing with a groin injury. So it begins. His start versus Pittsburgh in jeopardy. I think you're the one that doesn't have a backup tight end. Is that correct?
Correct.
All right. So George Kittle. I don't know if you heard anything else, but I mean, there's no not for sure he's going to miss, but this is the life of owning George Kittle, and Mikey has him in both the leagues that we play in. So he might be racing out to that waiver wire sooner than later.
I would say to that, having a groin injury, football to the groin, football to the groin. No, we don't get that reference.
Okay. Yes, we get the reference. Simpsons,
Thank
right?
you. Yes.
You could have done it better.
Okay. I try to get my Simpsons stuff.
Where is he going? Sorry, I'm watching the Orioles game. I need to stop. I'm watching my first place Orioles, by the way, tied with the Anaheim Angels. I'm sorry, I'm gonna pay attention. Okay, last bit of news, more tight end news, but it's good, I guess. Good old Kyle Rudolph. For those who remember, he is retiring this year. 12 years with the Vikings, Giants, and Buccaneers. Had a couple of solid fantasy seasons, but not a lot of news out there. Unless you guys saw anything else. I know we were all talking about the Travis Kelce news today as Kevin on the group chat, freaking out a little bit, but that's just how it goes. Hopefully Kelce is okay. All right. So you guys ready to talk about this draft now?
Yeah.
Let's get into it. I love it. All right. So what I told you guys to do, first off, is going through the first round. And I'll go through the first round here, and then we'll talk about it once I get all the way through it. And we can talk about surprises or things that stood out, all that fun stuff. Starting things off, Chad Powers fan club. They go with Justin Jefferson. Butterfingers and picking number 2, drafting Christian McCaffrey, and Jamar Chase going third to Cooper's Cousins. Nothing surprising there. And then maybe a surprise at number 4, Notorious CUP. They draft Patrick Mahomes, the team that, or they should say the quarterback that won them the title a couple years ago. He also picked them in the first round. And the Orioles gave up the lead. Austin Eckler goes 5th to NWA. We mentioned Travis Kelce going 6th over to Eaton W's. Tyreek Hill going to Belt Sanders at number 7. Cooper Kupp going to Lion Rip at 8. Hot Tamales drafting Stephon Diggs at number 9. Saquon Barkley going to yours truly, the Lemonheads, number 10. Bijan Robinson, number 11, to Kilgore Trout. And Derrick Henry rounding out the first round to Gonzo Cats. So, guys, I'll start with Mikey. What stood out to you about the first round? Could be about anything.
I mean, to me, like the first couple picks, those top 3 kind of went as like I thought that they would. No surprise, Jefferson, McCaffrey, Chase. The Mahomes thing, like I thought there was a chance. You know, I've said this all along that I didn't like the depth at the quarterback position, so I thought that there may be a team or two that may possibly go after a quarterback in round 1. What kind of shocked me though was I figured that Kelce would be there at my pick, and he didn't last that long. He got taken a whole 3 spots ahead of me, so that kind of shocked me.
Yeah, I agree. Patrick Mahomes was by far the top quarterback 1 year ago. So I could see why someone would grab him that early. I don't think that's a detriment. He's a great quarterback that can do a lot of great things despite what he has on the field. I mean, obviously he has Kelce, kind of a mishmash between running backs and wide receivers in terms of talent, but he continues to do it. In terms of the Travis Kelce, I honestly thought the same thing. I thought when it got to you, it would be between Kelce and Bijan Robinson. But Eaton W's, Kevin, who was not at the draft, if Eckler wasn't available, he wanted Kelce. So he went with them, and obviously Kelce, by far the best tight end. So everybody taking the high upsides of those and hoping that they repeat what they did last year. Todd, what else stood out to you?
To be honest with you, nothing really kind of shocked me, in this first round because, Travis Kelce, obviously, you've had Travis Kelce on your team. You've made the playoffs, or at least got to semifinals, or gotten to the championship game or even won it, and so forth. Bijan Robinson, I wasn't too shocked there. I mean, he was he's the top rated, rookie. He's going to get all the volume. So, really there wasn't nothing kind of really shocked me in the first round. And the Patrick Mahomes thing, yeah, I mean, Quayne got him, few 2 years ago and helped him win a championship. So, why not? If it's not broken, don't fix it. So nothing. To be honest with you, nothing really kind of shocked me in the first round of the players that went and how they went.
I will say that I was surprised that Cooper Kupp went incredibly early as he did. Not to say he's not a great player, not to say that he couldn't be one of, if not the top wide receiver. And I say that overall, not to finish the season, because you don't know how long he's going to miss. And so, like, if you're talking about like per game, I know Mikey likes to talk about points per game. He could still be the number one guy when he gets back in that regard. But how long can you not have a wide on your first round pick on your team? For someone like me, after I heard that news that he re-aggravated it, just looking at my rankings, I think I had him at 15th wide receivers, because I think at some point you want to hit on that first round pick. And if you don't, I'm not saying, I mean, Aaron's a good enough owner that he could rebound, figure it out, and kind of stay afloat. But I mean, if he's seeing a specialist, could it be a worse hamstring? I don't know if there's degrees of hamstring, but I don't know. That kind of surprised me. I mean, he's so good when he's out there. I thought for sure he would fall at least into the second round. Anything else we want to say about the first round? I mean, there's a couple of surprises. I don't want to say surprises, but interesting picks more than anything else. But thought it was pretty good.
Yeah.
Okay, well done, MHA owners. So I kind of had you guys give me a couple of picks that you guys liked, and it could be at any point of the draft. And so, Todd, give me a pick that you liked in this draft.
I'm going to go with Garrett Wilson in the second round. I had him, obviously, my rankings, top 5, but for him to drop, all the way down to 19, I really like that pick. Obviously, I'm really big on Garrett Wilson, because obviously it's part of my bold prediction that I had in our last podcast, where I think he finishes the number 1 wide receiver in fantasy and so forth. Because, like I said, on the offense, and the quarterback, he's receiving the ball from Aaron Rodgers. Last time I checked, he's pretty good. Now, granted, you're going to say, well, he's on my team, but I just think Garrett Wilson's that good. So I like that pick. And the fact he dropped that low, he dropped that far. I mean, it's the second round, 19th overall, but I mean, I don't know. I mean, some degree, I would have taken him over, or I would have taken Garrett Wilson over Tony Pollard in that case.
I mean, Wilson went and thanks to Mikey, he drafted up the rank and the receivers, the running backs, the quarterbacks, the tight ends, like based on where they went. So like Justin Jefferson was the first wide receiver taken, and then we look at Garrett Wilson, he was the 8th overall wide receiver taken in a draft, and so I'm sure that took a little bit of time. So thanks to Mikey for that. But Garrett Wilson went 8th overall. I don't think that was super surprising. I understand you have a bold prediction, but for someone who has a bold prediction, I think you actually believe it's going to happen because the way you talk about it all the time, and that's okay. But like, I mean, I think anybody. I mean, I had AJ Brown over Garrett Wilson, and he went ahead of AJ Brown. But I mean, that's one pick. That's one pick that went the other direction. But that's cool. I mean, you're high on him, and he went middle of the second round. So there you go. And so there's that. Mikey, give me a pick that you really liked in this draft.
So I really liked Allen's pick of Brandon Ayuk. He got him in round 7. And Ayuk was somebody that I had inside of my top 20. He ended up going as the 32nd receiver taken, and he ended up going after Brandon Cooks, who was somebody that I had 36th in my ranking. So kudos to Allen. I was in the middle of drafting, my running backs after not drafting a bunch in those first 4 rounds, so I didn't go after Ayuk at that point. But I think Allen got a steal.
And give credit to Allen for kind of waiting on him. I mean, we all know he's a big 49er guy. He could have went a round earlier if he really wanted to. And that kind of takes me back to the first round where he was telling me during the draft he thought about taking Josh Allen in the first round. But he's like, I'm going to wait. I'm going to get a top flight wide receiver and see what happens in the second round. And he ended up getting Josh Allen in the second round. So good drafting there by Allen Cook. One guy that I have a couple different ones, but and we all kind of talked about it, but Devontae Adams as the last pick in the second round is pretty incredible. There were some other picks that took place in the second round. You're like, no, I don't know about. But I mean, and we're all down on Devontae Adams. Okay, we know the story. We know who's his quarterback, and we're all concerned. And so you don't want to take the chance. But for Miles, who got the top wide receiver. All right, looks like the Orioles are going to tie the game. Hooray! I'm sorry, guys. Justin Jefferson goes number one, and then he gets Devontae Adams as a second wide receiver. Like, holy cow. I mean, I know on paper that looks amazing, and there's question marks, but you can be mad about. I mean, I'm mad about it because I have to play this fool in the first game of the season. So I got to deal with Justin Jefferson and Devontae Adams. That's a pretty good 1-2. I would say. Todd, give me another good pick that you saw.
Chris Olave in the third round. Obviously, I was high on him as well. Getting
Todd liking all these early round picks.
Yeah. Well, I mean, my steals and my later round pick, it'll be a good one. But Chris Olave, I like that. I like that pick. Again, I think that's going to be Derek Carr's go-to wide receiver going in. Obviously, Michael Thomas is back, as well. But I think Chris Olave, for sure, will be the number one guy. And he went, he went before because again, I guess I had an opportunity, but I saw Devonta Smith, and I was like, Devonta Smith, a little bit higher on my board, so I went with Devonta Smith.
Yeah, Chris Olave is second-year wide receiver. Mikey's talked about second-year receivers doing even better, and those guys can even take a step more forward. And New Orleans is probably I would say the number one guy. So CUP doing a nice job there, picking up a solid wide receiver in the third round. Mikey, who else you got?
So my other one was actually for you, Eric, because I liked your pick of Geno Smith in round 10, and even though you have him as a backup, like he could have easily been a starter for some of these teams. I had him ranked 8th on my quarterback rankings. He ends up going, as quarterback 16. So it's obvious that not a lot of people in the league believed in what he did last year. I just find it hard to believe, he's got better weapons this year and that he's that much worse. Like, I felt like that there was a bunch of quarterbacks taken over him that should not have been.
I agree. And at that point, I wasn't sure. I wasn't honest. In my honest opinion, I wasn't even thinking about taking a backup at that point. I mean, I have Burrow as my starter. He's been dealing with some stuff. Like he's starting to practice this week, and I think he practiced last Friday too. But that honestly wasn't a big part of my mind either. But Joe picked a quarterback before me, and I was like, "Whoa, Mel, maybe this is the time to pick up a backup just in case." I mean, you pick a guy early, and you wonder like, well, if I'm going to pick a quarterback, my backup here in the 10th round, who am I missing out on? Because I really thought about Zeke at that point, and just to have Geno. I mean, I had him ranked 8th on my rankings, and he definitely went after some guys I had ranked over him, and you just never know what's going to happen. Injuries happen, and obviously with Burrow now dealing with a little something, you just want to make sure you have that backup, and then you never know, it could be trade bait later if someone else goes down. So just something to think about. as I was drafting that pick. Another really good pick I saw. I have a couple of them here. I'm trying to figure out what like stands out. I got to talk about like Kirk Cousins, who was Kilgore Trout's number one. 12th quarterback taken. I had him ranked 6th overall, and so he was able to kind of wait on a quarterback. I mean, he admittedly said that he was hoping that Burrow would go to him in that 4th round, but I picked him once, actually 3rd round, excuse me. So one pick ahead of him, and so he had decided to wait, and he's able to pick up depth at other positions, and then was able to wait on Kirk Cousins, and I'm pretty high on him, and for him to wait, I don't have him in that same tier as Burrow, but to be able to wait and pick up guys, I mean, he ended up picking Ridley with that, and then able to pick up Jahmyr Gibbs and Tyler Lockett and wait on a quarterback. I mean, that's good value for sure. All right, gentlemen, we talked about picks we may not have liked. Mikey, we'll start with you.
I'm gonna go with Aaron Jones.
Ooh. Crapping on Aaron Jones, Todd's boy. Tell us why.
Well, like he picks him, that second to last pick of the second round. Like you look at the next 2 picks right after that, Devontae Adams and Joe Mixon, both who went to Miles. I would have rather had either of those 2 guys easily. Like Joe Mixon, I had 10 spots ahead of Aaron Jones in my rankings. I know Todd's in love with him, but I mean, to me, there's like a clear split with him and AJ Dillon, where Mixon is going to get the full workload in a better offense. And Devontae Adams, yeah, I had him on my list of ones that I thought could bust out, but still, he's Devontae Adams. Like, how you could take Aaron Jones over him, I just think is nonsense.
I'll just jump on the bandwagon of that too, because Deebo Samuel went a pick before Todd, and yeah, I would prefer Devontae Adams, Joe Mixon, Devonta Smith over Deebo too. So to have those picks back to back, and I think we love you, Todd, but you like fall in love with these guys. Like you were telling us, if Aaron Jones is there, I'm going to pick him no matter who's there, and hopefully that doesn't come back to bite you too hard. Hopefully he has an amazing season. He is an incredible talent, but maybe you could have picked up Devontae Adams and gotten Jones in the next round. Possibly. It's all about value, right? You want to get the guys that you like, and Mike will attest to that later in this podcast. But it's also about like waiting on guys, and then if you can get them later, boom, you pick up talent and you get the guy you want. So Aaron Jones, not a Mikey's top picks this year. So Todd, give me a pick you didn't like in this 2023 MHA draft.
I'm going to go with James Conner, 7th round. James Conner is so up and down anyway, and you don't know what the Arizona offense is going to look like. Obviously no Kyler Murray, so obviously they're going to run the ball a lot. But James Conner can, one season he can have the most touchdowns in the NFL, and one season he's non-existent. So I in some degree, James Conner, I would have taken a flyer on Dalvin Cook instead, no matter whether he's ready or not for week 1 or how good he's gonna be, than I would James Conner.
Yeah, that's a tough situation Arizona wise, but he went as the 28th running back. So you mentioned you prefer Dalvin Cook over him. Guys that went after him: J.K. Dobbins, David Montgomery, Khalil Herbert. He is a starting running back, and you get to the point where you're probably getting to the end of the starting running backs. Dobbins, Cook is a backup when everything is in motion. I would assume he's the backup, and then David Montgomery, he's kind of a backup, and then Khalil Herbert's a starter, Raheem Mostert's a starter. So Connor's kind of near the end where he's a number one guy, and I know it's not a great offense, but he's still a number one guy, and that makes it. I'm not saying he's gonna have a great season. I'm not big on Arizona by no stretch, but yeah, James Conner. Okay, Todd, not a big fan. Mikey, let me go with. I have a couple of them here. I'm gonna go DeAndre Swift from Miguel at 20th. I had him as the 31st ranked running back. I wasn't super high on him. I know his talent. Obviously, I was in love with him for the first couple of his seasons with Detroit. But plenty of running backs I would have taken over him. There's upside there for DeAndre Swift,
That was
especially in
Allen,
that
by the
offense.
way.
That pick Swift?
Yeah.
Okay, so my mistake. I don't know why I thought you did it. So Allen with DeAndre Swift, like I like him. He's going to play in a great offense. But is he going to get the goal line carries? We saw what happened a year ago with Detroit. And he didn't get much of those goal line carries at all. He'll get some catches. And he'll be good. But I mean, there's other guys that are going to have better and probably better touches, better targets than the Swift at that point. But if you like a guy, you like a guy, and if DeAndre Swift could break out and have an incredible season, but I think there's just so many factors around him it's going to keep him from that really high ceiling, in my opinion. So my mistake on that, Miguel. Todd, give me another one. Pick you didn't like.
The pick I didn't like was what did I have it on my? Was Calvin Ridley. I wasn't really big on him. I mean, at the end of the third round, I don't know. Again, it's just more about he hasn't played football for a while. Yeah, I would have taken in that case. I would have taken T. Higgins. Obviously, Josh Jacobs was there. DJ Moore, Keenan Allen. So I'm not really high on Ridley.
Do you think you went too soon, Miguel?
I think he went a little bit before I would have taken him. Like, I feel like the next two guys, like, T. Higgins, I don't know how he fell. It's round 4. Like, I would have taken him over Ridley. I would have taken DK Metcalf over Ridley. I personally would have taken Keenan Allen over Ridley. So, yeah, I kind of agree with Todd there.
Yeah, there's upside because he was great when he was out there, and he's looking good in camp. So we'll see how that all kind of plays out for Ridley. Last one that I have, and it's the guy that kind of went after Keenan Allen, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, DJ Moore, who we've talked about, and that was by NWA, went as the 19th overall wide receiver. I had him at 26, so 7 wide receivers I would have taken over DJ Moore. And, just in terms of some of the offenses that I liked better. I mean, you talk about Deontay Johnson, who's going to get a ton of targets, and Christian Watson, Mike Williams, Tyler Lockett. I mean, there's so many guys that I think would have been, I don't know, better suited than DJ Moore. I get that he's the number one guy, but we've talked about on this podcast plenty of times about the Bears, and always tough to see how much they're actually going to throw. And I've even argued in favor of Fields where he could get better and take a step forward in the throwing department. I know Mikey doesn't. That's why he's chuckling over there.
Well, that was my other pick.
That was your other one?
Yeah.
I mean, then we can also just kind of go over, and I'm sure Mikey will agree with me on this one too, but if you're not a fan of the Bears, then Justin Fields, who went over some other quarterbacks that maybe should have went. I mean, if you like him and if you think he's going to get better, then I could see the upside. He had a couple of weeks where he had 60 points, but that was only a couple of weeks. And so, I mean, guys like Dak Prescott went after him, and if you're a Deshaun Watson person, and Kirk Cousins and Geno Smith, all guys I had above him. But there's upside there, and we'll see if that all pays off for him at the end. Okay, guys, steal of the draft. Who ended up drafting a guy that could make a huge difference for the team? We'll start with Mikey this time.
Well, this one was pretty difficult for me because I didn't want to pick my person. So,
well, I'm okay if you pick your person if you feel like that's the steal. I didn't say you couldn't do it.
No, you didn't say that you couldn't, but I decided to go a different direction. So,
all right.
I went with Quain's team, and I went with Zay Flowers, who I know is a rookie, but like I think has shown some just in watching highlights, some incredible ability. Like I feel like somebody is going to end up breaking out of that receiver core for the Ravens, and he managed to snag him in the 10th round over Rashad Bateman, who I don't like. And
You don't like a lot about the Ravens, but Zay Flowers that may stand out to you, huh?
and
I mean, you're not big on Mark Andrews either or J.K. Dobbins, but Zay Flowers, that excites you.
yeah, that excites me. I think he can have a chance to be a real steal.
Yeah, the 47th overall wide receiver taken, as you mentioned, 10th round. So I'm not mad at that. I'm not mad at that. Todd, who was your steal of the draft?
Well, I mean, you got and it's on your team, and you got him pretty early, but Josh Jacobs in the 4th round.
Preach
That
it,
is
son.
the fact he fell, like, okay, if he was like it was like the 2nd or 3rd round, okay, maybe it wouldn't be a steal, but you got him in the 4th round. He dropped that. I mean, obviously the contract, dispute and everything like that, and knowing if he was going to play or not or whatever, but to get him in the 4th round, kudos to you. That's pretty damn good.
Yeah, I was surprised. He finished third amongst running backs in our league last year. He was the 15th running back off the board. So it was definitely surprising. And as it got closer, I was like, it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. There's so much talent. And it's almost another contract year for him, too. And I'm sure he's been keeping in shape. I know maybe people are like, well, he hasn't been in practice, so it's going to take him a few weeks. So what? If he comes back, he's the only running back they have that's worth a darn. And they're going to run him into the ground, and he's going to go find a contract somewhere else next year. Unless I don't think they have the ability to franchise tag. I'm not sure, but 4th round, I was surprised. I mean, and the picks kept going. I thought for sure that I thought maybe Joe would take him. I didn't feel Pollin would take him because he had Henry and Pollard as his first two. But then once Joe mentioned he thought about him, but he decided to go with the kind of the dual rookie running back situation with Bijan and Jahmyr Gibbs. And I'm super excited to have him. I'm hoping this is the year where running backs kind of get back into the positive fold of early picks. We talked about it last year, maybe even the last couple of years, where those early running backs that get hurt and they disappoint you, and maybe should have went with wide receivers. But for a guy who caught over 50 passes last year, and to pair that up with Barkley, who can also catch 50 passes, pretty excited for sure. And that was my steal of the draft. But I'll pick another one that I thought was really good, and a guy I almost picked as well, and that was Miles Sanders. I know Mikey's not huge on him, but I mean, he finished 12th in our league. He finished 12th in our league last year. He went as the 26th running back overall. I had him
Still
ranked
too
14. High. Oh, come on now. So Miles Sanders, I believe that was Quayne that ended up getting him. And for Quayne, and we'll talk about some of our favorite teams, but he was able to get him as one of his starting running backs. So I think that is just amazing values, considering he didn't even have a running back in his first 5 picks. So
I kid. I actually did have Miles Sanders ranked 26, so I'm a pretty good prognosticator.
Well, there you go. What? Yeah, okay. All right, so we'll continue on here. The best pick after the 12th round. Mikey, who'd you have?
Okay, so I'm going to give this one to Aaron. I felt like round 17, the very last round of the draft, KJ Osborne, like
Sure.
I think it's all but assumed, like by most people, that Jordan Addison is going to be that second receiver on Minnesota, a team that's throwing a lot, but we don't know that for sure. Like it could be KJ Osborne, and if that's the case, I just don't think that he's necessarily getting the respect maybe that he deserves.
Yeah, I think that's great planning because you don't know. They have Addison as the second ranked guy on the depth chart, but let's get into some real games, and that's really going to be a factor. And even if he ends up being the third wide receiver, unless you are super high on someone like Alexander Madison, this offense is going to throw a ton, and he could, even as a third wide receiver, can still benefit. And if either one of those other wide receivers go down, he's right there. So, and then he's shown what he's capable of doing too. So there's a lot of upside in that pick. Todd, who is your best pick after the 12th round?
Well, I guess this is right at the 12th round. I know it's supposed to be after, but getting OBJ for Mikey.
What?
I know.
Go ahead. Go ahead. I'm just
Uh, First Aaron Jones, now
OBJ.
Indeed. No, OBJ. If he can at least get back to where he a little bit of where he was, when he was with the Rams and so forth. That's a pretty good pick. That's literally like a super lotto ticket right there. So I go with OBJ.
I guess. I don't know. I mean, so for Mikey, who, you know, really likes Zay Flowers, can Odell do anything on top of it? I guess if you are not at all excited about Bateman or Mark Andrews, and I guess those two could flourish at the same time. But I get it. Lottery ticket. You're at the end. Who knows what's going to happen? Maybe you can find a second life somewhere. I'm just not big on Odell, but that's just me.
Yeah, and as a
Um,
wide receiver 5 for me, I was like,
yeah,
well, if it doesn't pan out, oh well,
yeah, for sure. Best pick after 12. I had two just in case. I like Romeo Dobbs, 15th round by the Tamales. A lot of upside there. If Jordan Love comes in and does Aaron Rodgers things when he came in for Brett Favre, then maybe that's a good pick. But as someone who has Christian Watson, I hope not. If they both work in unison, great. I also had Tajay Spears for CUP. Derrick Henry is going to fall off that cliff at that old age. Spears has looked good in the preseason, so he could be someone that could benefit as well. All right, guys. Which team, in your opinion, had the best draft other than yours? That was one I said you could not pick yourself. So, Mikey, who do you think had the best draft other than
Uh,
yourself?
other than myself, um, I wasn't. I
Oh, it's
wasn't gonna
me,
give,
but if I have to pick someone else,
I wasn't
but
going to give it to myself. I'm actually going to give it to you. Um,
what? Great. The jinx is on. I'm just kidding.
no, I just think like my strategy going in, as I've told you guys, was to make sure that I didn't leave those first couple rounds without a top quarterback. I just wanted to make sure I had it. So I grabbed it in the second round, and maybe I reached, maybe I didn't. We'll see. But you were able to wait, and getting Burrow, at the end of round 3, and then getting Jacobs to fall at that next spot in round 4. You ended up having a pretty incredible first 4 picks, with Barkley and with CeeDee Lamb and Jacobs and Burrow. So I thought you did a really good job.
Oh, thank you. No, no, it just panned out. You plan and you hope things follow the right direction. You take chances. I mean, I definitely started to panic when I saw you pick Herbert in that second round, and then Josh Allen went, and I was like, it might, because I was hoping to get one of those top 4, and we'll talk about this when we get to our teams, but just in terms of that, I was like, I hope I'm getting one of my top 4 quarterbacks. I really want to get one of those top 4, and then 3 of them went, and I was like, well, maybe it's not going to happen this year. And after Allen, we saw Lamar Jackson go and Jalen Hurts, and Jalen Hurts was not one of my top 4. In fact, it was number 5, but he was in a separate tier. And I was like, well, here's the opportunity. Do I wait and take Burrow on the comeback in the 4th round, or do I just snag him now and not worry about it? And I was hoping Josh Jacobs would fall. And there was DK Metcalf too. So it was 2 guys I really liked. And I was like, well, I'm just going to take Burrow because I do not want to leave this draft without a top 4. And then Jacobs ended up falling to me. So I definitely got lucky in that regard, but just planning it out, and it worked out well. Todd, who do you think had the best draft?
I'm going to go with Quayne. Mahomes, AJ Brown, Chris Olave, Mark Andrews. Whew, that's a pretty good one. That's a pretty good top 4 right there. Mahomes, is going to get you at least 40 or 50 points a game. AJ Brown is capable of putting up 20, at least 15 to 20. Chris Olave, same thing. Mark Andrews, right around there too. So Quayne did pretty. Quayne went back to the well that helped him win a championship a few years ago. So I think he had the best. He had the best draft, at least those first 4 picks. I mean, if Sanders can pan out, if Sanders can, kind of be what he was a little bit the last season with the Eagles, Dobbs, you got to just be careful of injuries. But I liked his draft. I liked his draft, and Cooper obviously helps a lot too. So I liked his draft.
Yeah, I was gonna say. I mean, his top 5 is pretty good. I mean, I like Amari Cooper, and so for him to not have a running back in the first 5 rounds and then get Miles Sanders and J.K. Dobbins, 2 guys I like. Not everybody's gonna like those two, so they may not put him in that upper echelon of teams. But for someone like me who does believe in them, I think that's incredible value. He got Andrews late in the 4th round where he could have easily went before, and getting that top flight quarterback and AJ Brown falling to him. I really liked AJ Brown. It was between him and CD Lamb when I was drafting earlier in that round, and I was drafting 3rd in the 2nd round. So I really like his team, but I'll also kind of give an honorable mention to Miles, who benefited from guys falling. Devontae Adams in the 2nd, Joe Mixon right after that. Brees Hall's kind of a wild card because he's coming off an injury, but if he pans out, that's great. And I'm not a huge Hopkins guy, but he's not a bad flex option. And he's got James Cook he can put in his flex. He waited on a quarterback, and I'm not super high on Dak, but that's just because I have an issue with him in crunch time. But he's a guy that can finish in the top 5 easily. And he got Pat Fryermuth, who I think is a good tight end, and he waited to the 8th round to get him. And he's got some good depth behind him as well. So that's what I would say. Just an honorable mention, and I have to play this guy in the first week. It's you come off his last year's record. Oh, I'm going to beat this guy, and then you see what he drafted. And I was like, oh man! And even during the draft, I was texting like, man, great job, man, another great pick. So good job there. So all right, what do we have here? We have some time left, so I'll let you guys talk about your teams if you want. So we'll start off with Todd, and we'll say, give me one of your favorite picks, one of your least favorite picks, and would there be anything you've done differently?
All right, so I think my favorite pick, was my first overall pick, McCaffrey. He does it all. He's the most versatile, I think, running back player in the NFL. And I could have easily have gone Jamar Chase too. I mean, it wouldn't have been a bad pick either. But McCaffrey, my first overall pick. I'm very happy. This guy's gonna get rushing yards. He's going to get receiving touchdowns.
Let me ask you something real quick, because if it's your favorite pick, because you talked about if Justin Jefferson was available, you'd have taken him. But McCaffrey's your favorite pick out of all your picks still?
Yes.
Okay. Go ahead. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. I know
fine.
you wanted Justin Jefferson really bad. And then you couldn't get him. Not that Christian McCaffrey's bad by any point. He was my number 2 and the best running back available. Get yeah, I see you.
Yeah,
keep going.
It's just because of the fact that I say he is so versatile. He can get catches, receptions, everything you want. In a running back. In fact, he can run between the tackles, do everything. He was for the last 2 years or so, or even before, he was, the best, the number 1 running back, in fantasy football. So that's why I'm just, very happy because I said, I know, that's why we don't do this on paper. We play it on the field, but I know he can at least get me 20 to 25 points or even 30 points every single week. And that to me is phenomenal. So, in my least favorite pick, and I guess, my least one was Samaje P. Ryan. I don't know if I was like, depending on what happens with Javonte, because obviously we've seen Javonte, he's ready to go, and you hope he can, stay healthy. But I thought, having him as a good backup, because they might still maybe wean Javonte, through the season a little bit just to make sure he's, okay, regardless whether I think he's going to full go or not. And then what I would have done differently, at the end of the day, I always tell myself every draft I've done, whether I thought I've made a mistake or I could have done, something differently, every pick I've made, that's the pick I wanted to make. And I feel confident every pick that I made. And that's because that's just the way, I feel like, I could, wait and see how the board is and go from there. But if I think this is the player I think that's going to help me win a championship, that's the player I'm going to pick. So to me, I wouldn't do anything differently, because I think at the end of the day, when we're in the off season, when we're doing all these ranking and stuff like that, you're putting a firm decision, like, if this is the player I want to pick regardless. I don't want to go with what changes because during the draft or whatever, because I think, okay, if I do that, then what I thought is going to happen doesn't happen with the player I want. So other than that, I'm all kosher.
Well, Todd's perfect. I get it. I understand. You went through and you reevaluated, and you wouldn't have done anything differently. Mikey, what do you got? Give me your favorite pick of your draft.
Okay, so I'm gonna make a prediction first.
Sure, let's hear it.
Todd mentioned his favorite pick. My prediction is McCaffrey gets hurt. Todd ranks him 25th in his rankings next year and never drafts him again.
Dad,
good old recency bias.
That's just rude, okay? That's just rude.
I don't know. It just seems like a burn candidate,
burn unit. Todd's burn unit.
Thanks, Mikey. Thanks.
I'm just giving you credit. I'm just giving you credit.
And the thing, and obviously too, I think we should, and we'll get to it toward the end here. But me and Mikey do play each other in week 1, so trying to put some of that voodoo right now. Come on.
I never said I never said get hurt in week 1. I just said get hurt.
Still, voodoo. Okay, Mikey, voodoo. Okay, I don't want that. Okay, all right. I just told him to put the bomb on. Okay, put the bomb on. All right. Yeah.
All right. So my favorite pick, and go ahead and crap on it if you want, but Michael Thomas, round 9.
Hold on, pinching a loaf here. Okay. Oh, that felt so much better. Go ahead, Michael Thomas. His favorite pick.
My favorite pick.
Come on.
I mean, look, I wasn't going to go with like my first round pick or my second round pick. I felt like it's somebody that I feel like I got at a bargain in round 9 with his potential upside if he truly is 100% healthy. We went over that in the Sleepers podcast that I really liked him. I've never had him before, and so now I'll have the opportunity for that. So I was happy about that. My least favorite pick. Well,
Michael Thomas. Sorry, go ahead.
No, Eric, not Michael Thomas.
Oh, that's my least favorite pick for you. I'm sorry. Go ahead. I messed up.
You hate him. I get it. It's okay. This, I've been looking back and forth at like different things that I could have done. So,
because you're not perfect, right?
No, I'm not perfect.
Todd's perfect, but we're not. But go ahead.
So, I don't know that I have a least favorite pick, but I think what could turn out to be my least favorite pick would end up being Justin Herbert, only because there's the way that the draft fell, and we don't have the benefit of knowing this when we make the pick, but Nick Chubb went the pick after. I can look at it now, hindsight being 2020, and say, oh, okay, well, if I take Diggs and then Nick Chubb, then in the 3rd round, I could have, maybe Herbert would have been there, maybe not, but I could have gotten Burrow at that point. And that didn't happen. It took it the way it was. So, I'm happy having Herbert, but I think it was maybe a missed opportunity.
See, Todd, was that so hard? He reevaluated his team and said maybe this could have happened for him.
I know, but we don't play the what ifs.
But that's the whole question: is the what if?
I know, but I'm very happy with every single one of my picks. That's
okay. I can't argue with that. So for me, we talked about Josh Jacobs. That's probably my favorite pick because I was pretty ecstatic when he fell. But I'll also say Christian Watson as a guy who I'm kind of high on. I know he's got a young quarterback running things over there, but they've had a good kind of rapport in the preseason. So I kind of like getting Christian Watson. He's incredibly talented. I liked him last year before the season even started. And so to get him as my kind of flex option, that's pretty thrilling for me. So I was super excited to get that. least favorite pick, I'm with you, Mike. It was really hard to say. But, you know, I don't want it to be. I'm so high on Christian Kirk. I probably did 5 mock drafts, and I got Christian Kirk in every single one of them. And so that's not to say that I must be alone on the planet that likes Christian Kirk. And I know Calvin Ridley's getting all the love, and he's the guy that everybody's that's picking and drafting. I mean, Ridley went in the 3rd round. I got Christian Kirk in the 6th round. And so to have him as my number 2 is a little scary. But and maybe I should have went a different direction in terms of getting more running back depth. But I hope I'm not going to be upset about Christian Kirk. I don't know if that qualifies or not, but just like, did I reach? I don't know if I reached for him necessarily. I mean, I have him where I had him ranked, and you look at the other wide receivers in the area, and maybe you go with this guy or that guy. But that's why I also went because in terms of Christian Kirk, at that point I was thinking, well, Miles Sanders, and then I can get a good 1-2-3 punch at running back, and maybe Kirk falls to me in the other one, and maybe this goes back to what I have done differently. Should I have went Miles Sanders, and would have Kirk fell to me in the 2nd round? I don't know. That's a long way to go because it's a long way to go from the end of the beginning of the 6th round and come all the way back to the end of the 7th. But that was one I was like, oh, maybe I should have went that direction. The other one I would have said was, and I mentioned this already, like the Geno Smith. I was thinking, Ezekiel Elliott, if he's there, I'm going to grab him because Charbonnet went before. And then I can have a running back that potentially get 10 rushing touchdowns. And then Joe kind of flipped my switch, and I went with the backup quarterback instead of possibly it would have been my 4th. And so I'm a little concerned about the depth in terms of quality running backs, but you know, I'm talking about my 4th running back, and hopefully none of my guys get hurt, especially in a situation where running backs get hurt quite a bit. So that's what I would say about that. I would, a couple minutes we have here left. How would you rank your team? Give me a rank, like a school grade on your team, Todd.
Well, Yahoo just loves giving me D's and F's.
I didn't ask for Yahoo's. I asked for yours.
Well, I know.
A+, right?
Well, I would say I'd give it a solid B.
Mikey?
Because,
go ahead. Make it quick.
I was just gonna say just because I know, and the one pick that a little bit that whether Yahoo or whatever, but yes. Aaron Rodgers. I know. There could have been some. I could have probably waited a little bit more on him, but if Aaron Rodgers, I know Aaron Rodgers can be the Aaron Rodgers he can be. Because like I said in the podcast in the summer, he's gonna play with a chip on his shoulder, and I know that's reality versus fantasy, but that really, really does make a big difference every single week. If I know he's pissed off every single time and he wants to stick it to the Packers, he's gonna put up 50 every week. It's gonna be beautiful.
Does he play the Packers every week?
No, but he's just gonna just whatever team he plays, he's just gonna pretend he's the Packers, and boom, it's gonna be 50. It's gonna be 50 every week. So, Mikey,
give me your grade for your team.
So right now it's at a B-, but there's room for improvement. So Kamara's not ready to play yet. Once he is, then I'll bump my grade up.
Yeah, I would say mine's an A-, because I love. I was hoping to get Andrews, but with Josh Jacobs falling, that just didn't happen, and I knew he didn't get back. But I'm happy with Waller. I like the upside from him, and my depth. So anytime you get quarterback early and you get a tight end early, that wide receiver running back depth is not going to look as good. So I tried to get some rookie upside and hope some of these guys pan out, and then I'll feel better about it then. But I feel like my starting lineup is pretty solid. So I would say A-, and hopefully I can scour the waiver wire or the guys I pick later end up panning out. All right, so before we get out of here, week 1 schedule. Lemonheads taking on Chad Powers Fan Club. And for those who know, Justin Jefferson was my guy last year, got me to a 3rd place finish. Now I got to face him in the 1st round, so that should be fun. The NWA will take on Cooper's Cousins. Gonzo Cats taking on Kilgore Trout. CUP taking on Lion Rip. Eaton W's versus the Belt Sanders. And as Todd mentioned, the Butterfingers versus the Hot Tamales in week 1. Here we go, gentlemen. 2023 season. Let's go. Let's get after it. Thanks for coming on to the MHA podcast. Mikey Renault, Todd Diamond, I'm Eric Lansing. We'll see you next week.